Hey everyone, let's bake some chewy pumpkin snickerdoodle cookies. In one bowl, gather 1 cup of unsalted butter, soften at room temperature. You may brown the butter if you choose, but I'm skipping over that step. I'm just using regular unsalted butter. But if you want a more like nutty oomph kind of taste, you could definitely brown your butter. It's just an extra step, of course. And if you choose to do that, follow the directions as usual. Make sure that your brown butter cools down. Add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, along with a 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of dark brown sugar. We're using dark brown sugar here instead of light brown sugar. Using a spatula, you can gently start to mix this all together. You can also use a handheld electric mixer or a stand mixer if you choose to, but the butter was soft enough, so I just used the spatula and it works out just fine. I forgot to mention at the beginning, these cookies will not be vegan because I will be using eggs. So mix, 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 mix. And of course, all of the ingredients are listed on the screen. Now you want 2 large egg yolks at room temperature. I'm using this little tool, but you don't need to use it, honestly. You can just separate it using the eggshell. Boom, add those in there. And then you want 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Using your spatula, mix this all together. These pumpkin cookies are so perfect for fall or any season really. Now you will add 2/3 cup of pumpkin puree. I am using this brand, the Libby's brand, and I am not straining any liquid out of this. I'm just adding the puree. Anytime you use pumpkin puree like this straight out of the can, the dough consistency is going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be more on like the wet side. You will see. All right, so in a separate bowl, gather your dry ingredients. You want 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Honestly, you can use whatever flour of choice you would like. I'm using all-purpose. Add 1 and 1/2 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. You may add a dash of nutmeg if you would like. It's optional. Add 1 teaspoon of baking soda and add a dash of salt since we used unsalted butter. You will need your whisk. Bust out your little whisking tool. Whisk it all up, all of these dry ingredients very, very well. And as always, we are going to add our dry ingredients to our wet ingredients. Once again, using your spatula, you want to mix this all together. Mix in all those dry ingredients with the wet until you don't see any more flour. You do not need an electric mixer to do this. Just use your spatula. As you will see, the dough is going to be more on the wet side, like this, here in a sec, and that's okay. As always, I like to test out 1 cookie at a time so that you don't mess up a whole tray of cookies. And if they seem to be a little too flat, you can always add more flour, but this recipe worked out just fine for me. But since the dough consistency is like this, you're going to want to refrigerate your dough. But before that, let's make our little rolling dust. Okay, so add 1/3 cup of sugar and about 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon into like a flat plate and mix it all up. You want to set this aside. This is what you're going to use to roll your dough balls in right before baking the cookie. And as I mentioned, you do want to refrigerate this dough for at least 30 minutes to an hour. This is going to help solidify the dough ball just a little more. It's going to make it easier to roll it in the sugar. So before I refrigerate these, I'm scooping them out onto a parchment paper so that it will be easier once I pull them out of the fridge. They will be ready to roll and ready to bake. I used a medium-sized cookie scooper. Look at how beautiful these are. You can use a smaller scooper or a larger one. It's up to you. Make sure that your oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, it's very important that your oven is preheated. As you can see, this dough ball, when you touch it, it should not be sticking to your finger. That's how you know you're good to go. If it's still sticky, if it's super sticky, you need to add just a little bit more flour to your dough, just a little sprinkle. But if not, if they're good to go, then roll your little dough ball into your little sugar dust, as you can see me doing here. Prepare your baking tray. So I always like to add parchment paper on top of my old baking trays. But even if they're new, I actually just got a new set, okay? But place some parchment paper over your baking tray. Test out one cookie at a time and bake it for 10 to 12 minutes. Once the timer goes off, you want to take the tray out of the oven. You want to smack it against the counter. Trust me, okay, this makes all the difference for your cookies. And then you can sprinkle some sugar once again if you would like. And boom, look at this cookie. So beautiful and delicious. I also tried to make these cookies in these really cute Halloween cookie molds. I didn't really like how they turned out, but I'm going to show you anyways. They were still delicious though, okay? So I just, sprinkled some sugar in there, put the dough in there, and I baked it for the same amount of time. It was like 10 to 12 minutes. And they were supposed to be like these cute little pumpkin shapes, which they did come out pumpkin shape. I just feel like they weren't as aesthetically pleasing as I imagined them to be. And this is what they came out like. Look at them, little pumpkin shapes. They're kind of cute. They were good though. All right, continuing on with the rest of the cookie dough. I just did them the regular way. As you can see, the dough's a little mushy, but it works out well because these are chewy pumpkin snickerdoodle cookies. So this is a very simple recipe, simple cookies. If you enjoy snickerdoodles, if you enjoy pumpkin cookies, you may enjoy this recipe. And I really hope that you do. Subscribe to my channel and please comment below. Did you give this recipe a try? Did it work out for you? Did you enjoy it? Thank you so much for subscribing and for joining my community.